Okay, I wanted to welcome you guys. I did hit the record button, so I didn't forget this time. That's good. But I'm Melissa Waldron, and I'm the founder of Red Hot Now. I help you get seen, heard, and valued. And today I have with me a dear friend. Her name is Karen C.L.Anderson. Do you like to use CL?
Yeah, because there's a lot of Karen Andersons.
That's right.
So that's why, yeah.
Right. So Karen is a master certified life coach. She makes sure that women who struggle with or are estranged from their mothers overcome dysfunctional generational patterns so they know they can live a truly happy life. But more than that she's a certified life coach, she's now an author. And she is the author of a fabulous new book, which we all need to get a hold of. And it's called The Peaceful Daughter's Guide to Separating from a Difficult Mother. So, Karen, when did you come out with this book? When was it published?
It was published on September 1st.
Okay, so not that long ago.
Right. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So I know you've published a book before this. It was about weight loss, right?
Correct.
And
it was actually more about self-acceptance. And it was another long title. I have this thing about long titles. It was called After, the Before and After, a real life story of weight loss, weight gain, and weightlessness through total acceptance.
Okay. Yeah. How was that writing about weight loss?
It was amazing. I mean, I started blogging in 2009 with the intention of figuring out what was wrong with me because I had lost 50 pounds and then regained half of it. And I had started sort of down a path of self-acceptance using emotional freedom technique, which is also called tapping. And I knew that there was something to the concept of self-acceptance and having a healthy body and not loathing your body, not hating your body. And so it was sort of, this blog was an exploration of seeing if I could truly love myself to a healthy, natural weight. And as a result of writing that blog, I decided to write my first book, which, basically I had already basically written it. I mean, my blog was very extensive. And so what I did was I took a lot of my favorite blog posts and then, edited them and, added stuff to it. And I had my book.
So that's a really great point. So it's not like you were starting with a blank page. You weren't just like saying, I'm going to write a book one day. I mean, you actually had blog material to work with.
And that's a very good point because whenever I used to think about writing a book, I imagined myself sitting in front of a typewriter and scrolling in a piece of paper and typing page 1. And nothing would come.
Exactly. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. So instead you just took the natural route, what I call the natural route, and just wrote what you were comfortable writing about in your blog.
Yep.
And then how long did it take you to compile enough information to where you felt comfortable turning it into a book?
I started the blog in the beginning of 2009, and it was probably around mid-2010 that I realized that I had material. And that book was published in March of 2011.
But how many, so you've been writing a blog for like a year?
A year and a half, yeah.
Okay.
At that point, yeah.
And would you say that each blog post was like maybe 500 to 800 words each?
Gosh, I don't know. Some longer, some shorter. I know that I was probably blogging on average of 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes more, sometimes less.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. And so that worked out really good. So, I mean, now how did you get into this book? Like what prompted you to write this book now? This is a pretty heavy topic.
Well, actually, it's kind of ironic that the first book sort of plays a part in this story. So yeah, it's no secret that I have a difficult mother and probably would consider myself maybe a difficult daughter. And when I started blogging, my mother became very uncomfortable with that. And at the end of 2010, just prior to my book coming out, a number of things had happened, and she sent me an email and told me that she was disappointed in the person that I had become.
Whoa.
And
whoa.
At a time, among other things, and that was at a time in my life when I was feeling like I was the best I'd ever been. I was healthier, I was better, I was excited about my life. I was taking really good care of myself. My relationships were flourishing. And so at the time, I was also still very much enmeshed with my mother, and believing that I needed her validation and approval. That was huge in my life. I just spent pretty much my whole life, contorting myself so that she would love and accept me. And so that was sort of the beginning of a huge, long estrangement. And I went for therapy and counseling, and I read books like, books about narcissistic mothers and books about mothers who can't love, and, all that kind of stuff. And for a while, I felt very sort of vindicated and, right that I had cut my mother out of my life, and that, she was bad. And it wasn't until I decided that I wanted to become a life coach and started getting coaching that I started to see the role, like my own role in what was going on. And it was that I saw myself as my mother's victim. And like unconsciously, that's just the role I played over and over and over again. And I started to understand a lot about victim consciousness in general, and what does that mean, and what does it look like, and how does it play out in families and in communities, and even in in our world, it plays out all the time. And when you play the victim, you automatically are going to become the villain, and you're automatically then also going to become the rescuer. And so my mom and I were on that, they call it the victim triangle, just cycling around and around and around.
Wait, what's the triangle? There's the victim, there's the rescuer, there's the villain.
Yeah.
And how do you become the villain?
When you're tired of being the victim, and I was just about, can I swear? I sometimes drop F-bombs, but you're finally
club.
You're finally like, F you, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you strike back, and that's what my mom and I were doing, was just constantly in this vicious cycle. And so, so I continued with the coaching, and then I decided actually to get the master certification. And what I've realized now is that any life coach or life coaching, any really good life coaching program is really about working on your own stuff and being open and willing to go there and to look at, the parts of yourself that you really don't want to look at.
Yeah.
And so that's
huge.
It's huge. And so actually the project that I had to complete in order to get my master coach certification was to create a program, a coaching program. And because I had been doing all this work on myself and around my relationship with my mom, I decided to create a program, which I called, at the time, I can't remember what I called it, but now it's called the Peaceful Daughter Program. And so that then became sort of the basis of the book that I just wrote. But sort of another sort of side part to this is that after I decided to become a coach, I kind of lost my blogging voice. I thought, oh, well, now I have to be authoritative and an expert, and I have to, not write the way I used to. And I was really doing myself and my readers a disservice with that. And so something that really was a gift for myself is that I sort of reclaimed that voice in this book. And it's not a clinical book. It's, it's really, it comes from a very vulnerable place, which is my strength. That's my superpower, I think.
Sorry, what?
I think that's my superpower, is allowing myself to really just, put myself out there in a way that is as honest as I can be.
I think that's a great point, because I think, especially when we're blogging, and I know I've struggled with this as well, that it's true. I feel like, okay, I have this blog, I need to be an authority or an expert, like you just said, instead of just being myself. So it's about coming back. It's kind of a full circle process where you think you're putting yourself out there as the authority, but actually you're diminishing your own value that way.
Right.
And so if you just were to write naturally how you are and just be how you are, that automatically makes you the expert or the authority, because you're you. No one else can be you, right? So
as we learned last night, right?
Huh?
As we learned last night at the meeting.
Yeah, exactly. I should say, I know Karen from the eWomen Network, which is a group we both belong to here in Connecticut. It's a nationwide membership group, actually. So if you are feeling called to be supported by other women, entrepreneurs, and business ladies in your neighborhood, you should check it out. I'm sure they're in almost every city in the country. So it's a great group of people. So, but yeah, so I think, so that kind of led you to going back to more of your core, like your core strength is just writing from your place, your point of view, right? Using your own perspective.
Yeah.
And writing in your own voice, like you were talking about last night.
Right. Absolutely.
And so when you're writing, have you always known how to write in your own voice? Did it just kind of come naturally to you?
No, not at all. I have actually written professionally since I got out of college. I did public relations for a while, and I spent many years as a plastics industry trade magazine journalist. And in 2005, I started freelance writing and writing more for me. And, but that still was, I was still writing for other people, and I was doing a lot of business to business writing and writing for, local magazines and that kind of thing, right? Telling other people's stories. And around that same time, I was a member of a diet program. It was called eDiets.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved about eDiets is they had these extensive message boards and support boards. And it was kind of there that I think I started to discover my voice, which was because I was just replying to other people and sharing things and sharing my thoughts. And I started to realize that, like, oh, wow, I have some interesting things to say. And it just came very easily and naturally to me. And so I started to write some personal essays, again, thinking that I needed to be published elsewhere. And then finally was like, oh, hello, I should start a blog.
Right. So it just kind of came naturally that way. You're like, oh, of course, this is what I should do. Uh-huh.
Right.
And was it hard to set up a blog?
No.
Challenging?
Nope. It's very easy.
Is it in WordPress?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But my blog has evolved over the years. It's been called different things, but it's always been on the same platform, the same KCLAnderson.com. Okay.
Right. So just for other people, so is it a WordPress.com site or is it WordPress.org? Did you install it yourself?
Yeah, it's on my URL, so right. I don't know which.
Okay.
It doesn't have a WordPress address.
Right. Okay. Right.
I'm not sure which one is which, but.
Right. No, I mean, these are all things that, these are all questions that we have when we're starting out. It's a little bit overwhelming, WordPress.com, WordPress.org. Oh my God, what do I do? Blah, blah. And that's stopped me numbers of times. I used to have a website in Weebly, which I was so happy to have just because it got me online. Otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
WordPress really freaked me out for a while. So Weebly's a great place, guys. If you want to just start blogging, try Weebly, try Tumblr. Tumblr is super easy, and you can use, big images. It likes photographs, it likes video, it likes audio. It's a media platform, Tumblr, and you don't have to write a ton either. You can just write a couple hundred words. That's it. And Tumblr is free. You don't have your own domain. You're on Tumblr's domain, but it doesn't matter. Like, just, you can just start using it, and it's super, super popular. And once people start following you and they start reblogging you, it's very powerful. Like, even if you have a WordPress blog, I would say consider going on Tumblr at the same time. Oh, look, there's Catherine. Hi, Catherine. Thanks for joining us. Just give us 1 minute. We'll get you on in a sec.
I'm going to try putting a headset on and see if it works better. I just realized that I
do you have a headset?
Well, yeah, let's see here.
Yeah, if you have a headset, that would be great.
Can you hear me?
What, did you plug it in?
I plugged it in. Can you hear me?
I don't know that I can hear you any better.
Oh.
Well, don't worry. No, keep using it. Do you have it plugged into the audio? You have it plugged into the mic?
I think so. I don't know. This is terrible, but I had it plugged in.
Okay. Well, I don't know. You could try it. Wait, I couldn't tell because you didn't talk into it long enough. But anyway, it's fine. Okay, so Catherine's here. Let's let Catherine in. Hi, Catherine.
Oh, Catherine.
Yes, Catherine Ewing's here. Hopefully she'll pop in. I don't know. I don't know what she's doing. Technology. Anyway, so Karen, she'll be in when she can, I guess. But the reason I wanted I just resonated so much with your writing about this topic because it, really struck a chord for me because I had a very difficult relationship with my own mother, who's since passed away. Now, is your mom still alive?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess, I don't know how to say it. Otherwise, I had the benefit of being able to extrapolate the relationship a bit since my mother passed away. And I don't know if, who knows, right? But if she was still here, I'm not sure that I would have made a ton of progress on it, like you have, because I was so enmeshed in it that I didn't even realize that I had a problem with my mother until after she died. So, but my mother was, I love my mother. My mother, was my best friend. And, I'm sad every day of my life that she's gone. But she was a malevolent narcissist. And there's a lot of scarring left with that, that has to do with confidence, self-worth. The whole story that I have about, being invisible and becoming visible in the world has a lot to do with the fact that my mother never, I don't know if your mom was like this at all, but my mother hated sharing the spotlight with me. So, and I'm the only child. I'm her only child. So anytime I got any recognition for anything, she would immediately do whatever she could to stamp it out and put her foot down and go, whoa, it's about me. And no matter what it was. So, and I was so used to that. I got so used to just subjugating, subjecting myself to that and just being like, okay, let her have the spotlight, because in order for me to take away the spotlight from her would cause me so much anguish and problems, because she would belittle me, criticize me, berate me, yell at me, not talk to me, scream at me, hysterics, the whole thing. that it was so excruciatingly painful that I just decided to just not do anything and just let her have it because it didn't matter to me that much. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Do you relate to that at all?
Absolutely.
You know, I once had this is a long story, but I have many funny stories. My mother was a total trip. But one story is that one time we were in a lawyer's office because she wanted to sue my landlord. And so we were in this lawyer's office, and the lawyer, who didn't know either of us at all, was looking at me directly in my eyes, and he would ask me a question, and my mother would answer. And then he would ask me another question, and my mother would answer again. And this went on for like 10 minutes. And then the lawyer was like, he's like, who's the person here that has the problem? And it was so funny. And I had never witnessed that before, you know, from a stranger confirming. He basically confirmed for me that my mother was stomping out my fire. Do you know what I mean? And I was 24. It took me to be that age to finally realize that.
Well, it took me until I was well into my 40s, if that helps.
Right.
So there you go.
Right. I know. It doesn't really matter, right? It just is what. So we're gonna try to let Catherine in again. See if this works. But so, you know, for Karen, I guess what I wanted to ask you is, like, you know, to talk about this type of thing is very, you know, it's very personal. It's very intimate. I mean, I don't know how many other relationships we have in our life that's as intimate as our mothers. And, you know, for you to kind of use yourself as to share your story in order to illustrate how you can get beyond that dysfunctionality is really brave and courageous of you. I mean, that's, in my opinion, because you're really putting yourself out there. And, you know, it's funny when in the past month or couple of months, I have had some moments of extreme terror. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much of this to share, but I was in California actually helping teach an incoming class of life coaches. Mm-hmm. With my mentor. And one of the students shared a story. I want to share all of it, but the upshot of it was that this person believed that if they moved forward and were successful, that God was going to kill them. Like they really believed this. This was like, and it stemmed from childhood sexual abuse by a priest. Wow.
Yeah. So I was watching my mentor coach this person, and that was a beautiful thing, a very beautiful thing. But what occurred to me is that I have had the beliefs unconsciously until that moment, or maybe it wasn't totally unconscious, but the belief that my mother brought me in and she can take me out. And that there's something worse that she could do to destroy me. And like you were saying about how your mom constantly like squashed you. And what I have come to realize is, and the thing that's really amazing about this is being able to tell this story without it being super emotional for me. Like I can stand on my story now. It doesn't stand on me. But
that's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it.
And that is that my mother has basically tried to destroy me emotionally. She has tried to use my love for her to destroy me. And in talking with other members of my family, I want to read this, okay? Because I want to make sure I get it right. But this was something that I think I've come to believe about my mom and her behavior, because it's happened with everyone in her family. I'm not the only one that she has done this to. But she said, if your mother could make you go away and make it seem like it was your own fault, then no one can blame her for pushing you away or throwing you out. Because that's basically what she has done. And I know now that she does it because she's terrified. And maybe she has mental illness as well. But yeah.
Can I ask you, do you have other brothers and sisters?
Not by her.
Okay. So you're her only daughter.
I'm her only child. She adopted, when I was 9 years old, she adopted a little boy who was 8. My mother and my stepfather adopted him. But then she basically did the same thing with him, which was he had a ton of problems. And, you know, when she realized that adopting him wasn't going to solve all of his problems, she pushed him out.
Okay. Right. Yeah. And so where does your mom live right now?
She lives in Maine.
And do you communicate with her?
Right now, I only communicate with her, and this is kind of funny. I communicate with her because I am her mother's legal guardian.
Ah.
So it's my responsibility legally to communicate with my grandmother's heirs, which are my mother, my aunt, and my uncle.
So there's just a legal issue that's keeping you guys in contact, basically. I mean, yes. Would you be talking to her otherwise?
I'm not sure. After she sent me that email in 2010 when she told me that she was disappointed in who I'd become, I wrote back and I said, I'm done. Don't call me. Don't email me. We're done. And there's Catherine.
Oh, there's Catherine. Hey.
Hey, did I come on?
You finally made it. Welcome.
Well, it's funny because I changed my Twitter handle.
Uh-oh. Yeah, turn down the volume.
Yeah. And this is still my old one, and it wasn't letting me on, but now it is, so.
Right. So here you are.
Who knows?
Good. Thanks for joining us. Did you have a question for Karen or something to share?
Wait a minute. I'm gonna try to do this without.
Are you there?
All right. There was a lot of feedback. Is it in?
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback. That's true. You can't hear.
I have no idea what that is.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's too bad.
I'm here.
It's working. All right. Well, we'll try again. Thanks. Okay, so I know it's funny, right? I'm actually getting really used to this. This happens all the time on other people's shows, so I'm like, whatever. But so Karen, so you know, because I don't think that I could have written about something like this while my mother was alive, and I have a book inside me that I want to get out, and I'm still, you know, can I tell you something? I'm still feeling guilty about wanting to share that experience with people, like that I'm telling everybody that my mother is a bad person, you know, like right now, just talking about it, I'm like, oh, you know, she wasn't that bad, you know, I want to make excuses for her. Or, you know, because I love my mother, right? It's like, can you still love your mother?
Absolutely. Yes, because I make a choice, and it doesn't happen it's not 24/7, 100% all the time, but I choose to love my mother unconditionally. And the reason
that's the key, unconditionally.
And the reason that I choose to do that is because it feels good for me. Guilt doesn't feel good. Blame doesn't feel good. Anger. I mean, and I'm talking, I spent years, white hot anger. You know, trigger switch, like she sends me an email and boop, I'm like, you know.
I know.
So
she had the power. I let her have the power to ruin not just days, but weeks for me.
Years for me.
Years, right? I know, years, like years. No, and it's interesting because I used to say, oh, it was my mother's fault, but and it's not, I don't know if it's fault. It's just that how can we love, like, it's like learning to love myself, even though I felt like I was allowing this abuse to take place because I felt bad. Like if I hung up on her, I would feel bad. If I told her I don't want to talk to you for a week, I would feel guilty, and she would cry, and she would tell me how I'm mistreating her and how I'm the bad daughter and all that stuff, right?
That's her becoming the victim and you becoming the villain.
Right. Okay. So that's how I'm the villain, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then you're like, oh, I feel so bad, and then you go into rescue mode, and she stays in the victim, right? Yes. And then she becomes the villain, and you go into villain, and it just.
Oh, I know. It goes on and on in perpetuity. It's incredible. And she, I did spend, after my dad died in 2002, and she lived to 2005. So there were 3 years where she was by herself, and she'd been married to the same man for 45 years. But for those last 3 years, I felt, responsible for her, and like I was needing to take care of her all the time. And she just like, so we started having this like really serious codependent relationship that was just bizarre, I mean, it was bizarre. And I feel like, and she passed away from cancer very, very suddenly. And honestly, I felt like, well, that's a whole other story, but, I felt very responsible for that too. I just felt responsible for her, like all the time. I don't know, is that a common symptom of this situation?
Yes, it is. And it's because, and again, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, and so I might use words that I'm not maybe using them correctly, but whatever. Enmeshment.
We're just exploring the topic here because we're all just trying to find what's true, what's real, what makes sense.
And again, this is not to say that therapy is bad or that those books are bad, but what I was going to say is that for me, the therapy and the books about narcissistic mothers kept me stuck. They kept me in victim role because I'm like, see, she's a narcissist, so I'm screwed. Right. That was sort of like that was my story.
I know. I'm like, oh well, what can I do, right? Yeah, exactly.
And so acknowledging that, okay, maybe she has that stuff going on, all right, whatever. But like, I get to choose how I want to show up in the world now. And I get to decide who I am and how I want to be. And I didn't want to be a victim anymore because for me, being the victim was somebody who can't take care of herself, who doesn't write books, who doesn't, share her gifts, any of that. And that's not who I am. And so for me, learning to take responsibility for my own emotions was the key. I guess enmeshment basically is when when the two people believe that they're responsible for each other's emotions, like again, and it starts young with some people. It's like mommy says, oh, you make mommy so happy when you're a good girl or whatever, and daughters,
the good girl syndrome,
right? And then girls, they want their mother's love and affection and approval and validation, and so they spend a lot of time changing who they are in order to get the love, and so they make their mothers responsible for that, and at the same time the mother is making the daughter responsible, and so it's just this big mess. But
well, let me ask you, I don't know if anyone else who's listening here, how do you identify the fact that you're a victim? Because I didn't really know that I was being a victim. You know what I mean? The way you described it earlier is a really great description, but how do you touch base with yourself, like, and find that, how do you find that truth? Because there's a lot of subterfuge.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think that in our culture, being the victim is something that a lot of people are ashamed about. Like they're like, oh,
absolutely.
People will accuse people. Oh, you're playing the victim, And so first of all, you have to be willing to just be curious, and you have to be willing to not be judgmental about yourself, and to say, oh, here I am pretending that I can't take care of myself, or here I am making excuses as to why I can't do whatever it is that, you want to do. Those to me are signs that you're playing the victim, that you don't have any agency or control in your life.
I think that's great. Yeah, I like that connection between thinking you don't have control to where that's actually a victim mentality.
Right.
Because that happened a lot to me, and I've heard my other friends who have difficult mothers talk about that as well. Like, well, what can I do? And it's all about choice. And how did you finally have a conversation where you said to her, I don't want to talk to you anymore? Or did you finally have some breaking point with her officially where you actually formally told her you want to disconnect?
Well, after that email, I did. I wrote an email and I said, based on what you've said here, I don't want you to call me or email me again, and I don't want to see you.
So you put that in writing?
But that was in writing, and that was also from a relatively unaware place. I mean, I was building up to it, but I don't mean to say that, oh, I learned everything when I went to life coach school, but that, up to that point, I was still believing that she was responsible for my emotions. Like I didn't realize that she wasn't. Like I truly believed that she caused me anger. She caused me hurt. I believed that she was the cause of those emotions. And what I learned later is that it was my story about her and about what she did that was causing me the hurt. And that's a huge distinction, is that we tend to believe that our emotions are caused by outside circumstances or other people. But really it's the thoughts in between, and the thoughts that we're having generally are unconscious. But it's like what we're making it mean. Like, so I would make everything that my mother did, I was making it mean that she was attacking me. And that's not the truth. That's how I interpreted it. And so I have to take responsibility that I created that pain for myself.
Mm-hmm. Instead of what? Like, what are the other options?
Blaming her. And, you can also, I think what ends up happening a lot of times too is the blame cycle where, we're brought up to believe don't blame other people for your problems, right? So you blame yourself. But blame doesn't ever help. It's blame keeps you in victim mode, whether you're blaming yourself or whether you're blaming someone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great piece of advice for anybody in any situation, right?
Oh,
Whether if you're gaining weight, you're unhappy, or you broke up with somebody, or whatever crisis point you feel like you're in, that you start blaming yourself. Like, especially, I know some friends that have had experiences with cancer, right? And some of them feel like they're blaming themselves. They need to blame themselves because they smoked, or they drank, or they ate the wrong food, or whatever that is. And I think to me, it's like, instead of blaming myself for stuff now, I find it curious,
Yes.
Like, I'm curious. I'm like, oh, that is really curious why I felt like I could be 20 minutes late. I'm terribly late a lot. I'm like, I'm really curious why that is, and it's like, instead of beating myself up for it, it's like, I'm just being curious about things, right?
Yeah. And it's, I think there's a lot of freedom in realizing that there's many options rather than just this or that. And like,
Right.
I think you were saying that before of like with your mom, like either, and maybe I'm misunderstood it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but like you feel that guilt of like, oh, well, I'm supposed to love her. She's dead. But I also have this story that I want to tell. And so in your mind, it's an either or. Either I love her and whatever, or I write my book.
I had a really hard time with that after she died because, yeah, I mean, I felt like I needed to honor her, and I, you know, as you understand, I mean, I do love my mother very much, and she's now become my advocate. But before I had to really come to peace with a lot of stuff and kind of sort stuff out. But the first instinct I had was just to feel really guilty about having any bad feelings whatsoever, you know.
One of the first exercises in my book is about how to reframe your story so that it frees you rather than keeps you stuck. And it's so funny because now I'm thinking to myself, I should do a workshop. Yeah, and it's like usually I'm the last, like people are like, hello. But to do a workshop where women tell their mother stories. And like, and you start with the raw, unfiltered, you know, as Anne Lamott would call it, the shitty first draft.
I love Anne Lamott. Oh my God.
You just write it. You just write it all down and get it out of you. Get it out of you. And then you learn to tell your story in such a way that it empowers you and your mom for that matter. I mean, like with my mother, there's her mother, who that's a whole other story. And what happened between my mother and her mother, and what happened between, you know, etc. And I mean, this is what is often referred to as the mother wound. And it's the pain of being a woman in a patriarchal society being passed down generation to generation to generation. And that pain, when we are in pain, that's when we do crappy things. You know, and sometimes it shows up as mental illness. Sometimes it is, you know, narcissism, which is a mental illness. It's not something someone chooses to be, you know? It's like their coping mechanism.
Oh yeah, yes, exactly. I think narcissism is a coping mechanism. The more I understand it, it makes a lot of sense to me. Absolutely. Because so what I wanted to talk about, we're getting close to the hour here, but is
and I have to leave at 1:30.
What?
I have to leave at 1:30.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll be done for that. But so I just want to say, so first of all, the exercises in your book. So that's a really good reason why everybody should go right now to your Amazon page and buy this book because
it's not expensive.
I know it's like $4, and you're coming out with the print version soon, right?
Yes, in November. I don't have a date, but yeah.
I mean, the whole thing we didn't talk about is about how you self-publish this book. You know, how did you get into it?
There is an amazing woman out there. Her name is Angela Loria, and she has a publishing company called The Difference Press. And she works with people who want to make a difference. And her program, I don't know if she's still calling it this, but it was the Author Incubator.
Okay.
And she helps people publish books in 3 months, write and publish their books in 3 months or in 3 days, believe it or not. You can go with Angela. She goes all over the world. She does it in Hawaii. She's done it in England. She's done it in parts in the United States, where she brings a group of people together and they hammer out their books. And so that's
amazing to do that in 3 days.
Yeah. And she, as of, I think, October 6th, she has published 100 bestsellers.
Wow.
So that's, big shout out to Angela.
Wow. And so how did you find her?
Well, she and I were friends on Facebook because there were a lot of other mutual friends. And then last year, or no, actually it was earlier this year, I went to a mastermind that was held by my mentor. My mentor's name is Brooke Castillo, and she runs the Life Coach School. And she had a mastermind, and she invited a few speakers to come and speak, and one of them was Angela. So I actually met Angela in person at that point, and realized that I had this book in me that I wanted to get out. So,
and here you are.
And here I am.
And how long did it take you to from start to finish? You said you had blogs or postings, right?
Yeah, it took me 3 months.
I mean, you literally just put the words that what you had already together and then just worked on that and built that out from there.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot more writing that took place after that. And the way Angela's program is set up is she has developmental editors and artists, and it's a whole full publishing company. And so, they work with you. What's really kind of fascinating is that they work with you before you even start writing officially. They work with you on what you want the outcome of your book to be. Who's your ideal reader? And a lot of these are exercises that, coaches and consultants and people and entrepreneurs, they do this kind of work to learn how to market themselves, right? Ideal clients and all that stuff. But the way Angela did it was very, very clarifying for me. Mm-hmm. And so in the end, my book sort of was a love letter to one very specific person.
Ah, you wrote it as a love letter.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. I love that. I love the backstory of how these things get done, because it takes such a tremendous amount of focus and attention and nurturing and patience. Yes.
And with my first book, I mean, a lot has changed in self-publishing from 2011 till 2015. And the first time I did it all on my own, and I hired an editor who was a friend of mine. She did a great job. I hired someone to create a cover, all of that. But I did it very much, piecemeal and on my own, and not really knowing what I was doing. And Angela's company really, is just puts it all together in such a nice way.
Is it really that much different?
It was very different.
How?
It was.
Sum it up.
What?
If you can sum it up, I mean, what makes it so different? Is it just more competitive, more books, more?
So I mean, ask me the question again. Like, how is what different?
How is publishing a book today different than 2011 when you first published your first book?
Well, okay, I can't answer that question because I'm sure that there are people who publish today by figuring it out on their own. And okay, here's a self-publishing company, I'll use them. Here's a cover designer, I'll use them. Here's an editor, I'll use that person. I know that there are a lot of book coaches out there now too, that I don't, maybe they were there in 2011, but I didn't know about them. Mm-hmm.
But it was different for you because you followed a different process.
Yes. And this process was very, there were times where it was scary, and there were times when I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to get this done. And, all the pieces that had to come together. But Angela was holding that space for the book to happen. Like, it was going to happen. Whereas the first time it happened, but it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just different. It was just like, I was sort of like stabbing in the dark at things, like, oh, all right, I'll try this, and oh, I'll use that. And it was one nice big package.
Yeah, it seems like the first time it was more piecemeal, just trying different things, but now it seems more focused. There's more of a flow and intention and determination, and there was a goal at the end of 3 months, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. And so when is your book coming out in print? I know you said this already. It's coming out in November?
Right, and I don't have a date.
Okay.
But
So
I do know.
Come back and talk to me again when it comes out in print.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many other questions to ask you, but I think our time, we should keep it within the hour just to keep my integrity, because I don't want to keep going. But I am so glad we could do this together. It was really good. It was really fun.
Me too. And I mean, you've given me a lot of ideas of things that I should probably be doing myself, right?
Oh yeah.
And actually, when I started writing my book, I took myself out of a whole bunch of Facebook groups, and yours was one of them. And I'm like, now I want to get back in, because I was like trying to keep myself like undistracted.
Oh, I know. I know. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I'm just going to post my Facebook link again, because the whole reason I do this show is that people who are in my Visibility Lab, I do interview here on Blab, and I interview also on my Blog Talk radio show. So I have a and there's going to be 2 radio shows I'm doing. One is called Be Your Cause, which is about how you connect your passion with your business. Meaning, like, if you're a house contractor, but you love triathlons, and it's like, and then you want to give to charities, and it's like, how do you connect your bigger picture to your work, and how do you create content and messaging around that? And then there's another show called Red Hot Now, which is Divine Feminine Wisdom, which is all about how we are moving into a new era of business, and how it's becoming not the top down industrial industry that used to be, and now it's more expansive. There's a larger horizon, a wider horizon out there, where we're connecting in more of what I consider a feminine way with collaboration, connectivity, creation, and which isn't to say that guys can't do that too. It's just a different way of doing it. So I'm looking at that as well. So I don't know, Karen, there's a lot of ways for you to work with me and continue this conversation. So I'm glad that you're here. And
absolutely. And you're doing, it's funny, because what I was about to say is that what you're doing is you're breaking away from that mother wound. You were talking about how things are changing in the divine feminine and all that. That's something our mothers and their mothers and so on didn't have access to. And that's part of their pain. That's part of what they, that's
I would really like to talk about that with you. No, I'm really, because I totally get what you're talking about. And my mother suffered a lot in her life, because my father, when he married her, said that she would never need to work again. And he basically said, do not work. I just want you to be a housewife. Mm-hmm. And so my mother, who was a very smart woman, spent the next 45 years of her life not working, and just becoming increasingly more neurotic.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we can talk about this for hours, right?
I know. So anyway, thank you, and I hope you. So guys, jump in my Visibility Lab. It's a place for support, communication. So anything you want to do, you want to put out into the world, you want to test it here in the Visibility Lab with us first. You can do so in a non-judgment zone, and we will give you some helpful feedback and support. And I love you guys. Thank you guys all so much for being here, and take care. And thank you, Karen, for your time. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.